Well, good morning again, Senators. It's great to see everyone back for the 2018 legislative session. And I would like to begin today by addressing a very important issue that faces not only the Florida Senate, but also our counterparts in Congress, the entertainment industry, employers large and small across the country, and our culture in general. Let me be clear. The Florida Senate has zero tolerance for sexual harassment or misconduct of any kind against any employee or visitor. State government should lead by example in instituting policies that ensures employees feel safe when they come to work and comfortable to confidentially report inappropriate behavior by any person. As public and private entities around the country review their own policies related to sexual and workplace harassment, the Senate is also participating in this important dialogue. Led by Chair Benaquisto, the Senate is working to update its administrative policy on sexual and workplace harassment to make it even more abundantly clear to employees and anyone else that they can and should report sexual or workplace harassment to anyone they feel comfortable speaking with. During my 6 years in the Florida House and my service here in the Florida Senate, it's been my experience that the vast majority of elected officials, professional staff, and visitors to the Capitol conduct themselves with a high standard of professionalism and dedication. In fact, in the Florida Senate, as you know, we are blessed with some of the most qualified and dedicated professional staff I have ever had the pleasure of working with. Many of our professional staff members have served this body for decades before us, and they will be here long after our public service comes to an end. I want every Senate employee to hear me when I say that as your president, I am committed to ensuring that we all have a safe workplace environment to do the people's business. One of the most important issues affecting the people of Florida is addressing the recent hurricanes that have impacted our state. And let's start with Hurricane Irma. In the Senate, we've had 14 Senate committees that have held hearings on response, recovery, lessons learned. We are reviewing the impacts to state parks and beaches, to utility infrastructure, an issue that's important to Senator Simmons, and fuel supply. Now, while many parts of our state were hit by the hurricane and are still recovering, I think we can all agree that the Florida Keys was especially hard hit. They have shown a remarkable resiliency, and while there are workplace needs, and while there are businesses that are still getting back to full steam, I, for one, admire the resiliency that our fellow citizens in the Keys have shown to getting that important part of our state back and functioning. In addition, Senator Galvano, Senator Grimsley are both working on comprehensive legislation to help our agriculture industry, particularly citrus, get back on its feet. One of the, and there are many, but one of the sad parts of Hurricane Irma was that our citrus industry was just on the verge of having probably their best year in a decade, with all the challenges from greening and other challenges for overseas competition that they faced. And I've talked to many citrus owners, to other employees who work in the citrus industry. They're 100% committed to getting back on their feet and to continuing to make Florida a place like we all grew up. There's certain iconic symbols in Florida, the grapefruit, the orange. Those are important parts of our state, along with many other agricultural products that are grown in Florida. So I'm looking forward to their work. Senator Stargell, Senator Book, and others are working to address issues surrounding the electricity outages that occurred throughout the state, but particularly at our nursing homes. And most of you who know me know that I have been a long-time supporter and promoter and believer in our nursing homes. I have visited nursing homes in my district and all over Florida. And some of you have heard this before, but it's okay. It's a good reminder for all of us. We know from demographics that the composite resident of a nursing home is an 85-year-old woman. And many of you have had the opportunity, as I have, to visit these women in their nursing homes and to see the character that they bring to our state and have the same affection and feeling of responsibility toward them that I have. And I always give credit to people to the best of my ability, when they have come up with a good way of saying something. So I have to give credit to Senator Benaquisto for this statement, because she told this to me and it stuck with me all these years. These are the women who shaped our communities. And when you see them, they raised families, they worked, many of them volunteered during World War II. And I think it's critically important that every senior in a nursing home, men and women, are cared for with the highest level of safety and dignity, and that will be one of our priorities this session. A couple final thoughts on hurricane recovery. I think an issue that I see as I travel throughout Florida is the need for removal of displaced vessels. I know that FWCC has taken a leadership role in that. We want to make sure that we give them the tools that they need. I think that's a very important part for safety and for the condition of our state. Senator Stargell, Senator Pasadomo, and Senator Young have filed legislation for us to consider for a hurricane sales tax holiday. And the governor and our entire state, Senator Torres, all of us welcome the tens of thousands of our fellow citizens from Puerto Rico who have chosen to make their new home in Florida. We will welcome them, and we will take whatever steps we need to in conjunction with the governor regarding policy and budget to make sure that we welcome them as our fellow citizens to the state of Florida. Next, I'd like to talk a couple minutes about the opioid crisis. This is an area where senators organically have been addressing in their own districts. I personally have attended some, but I attended one particularly in my home area. I represent Western Palm Beach County, but Senator Rader co-hosted a forum on the opioid crisis in Palm Beach County. And we have heard many things from everyone involved in that issue. And obviously our hearts go out to families and to individuals who've been affected by this issue. I have another phrase I want to give credit for, and this goes to Senator Brandis. He and I were talking about this issue a few months ago, and this is the first time I'd heard this phrase directed toward this issue. He said we need to have a multidisciplinary approach to the opioid crisis, and I think that really sums it up well. Senator Benaquisto is carrying the governor's proposal, which will also have her own personal policy recommendations. Senator Bean has a bill that addresses prescribing limits and what should be our policy in that regard. I know Senator Pasadomo is very passionate and has researched and gotten visits from personal knowledge on the pediatric aspects and the neonatal aspects of this issue, which are so important. And Senator Garcia has really been a passionate advocate on substance abuse and mental health treatment long before this particular issue arose. And I'm looking forward to contributions that he will make and continue to make on that idea. And Senator Garcia, thank you for your leadership in many, many years here in the Senate on both substance abuse and mental health. For people that are selling and trafficking in opioids, to me, that is a criminal law issue. And we will do everything we can to support law enforcement, to crack down, to do everything we can to stop the sale and distribution of opioids. At the same time, for those who are struggling with addiction, who want help, who reach out for help, to me, that is more a public health issue. And I think it's important that men and women who come forward, who seek help, that we have appropriate solutions for them, that we have appropriate treatment, including medication-assisted treatment, to give them every opportunity to overcome their addiction. And I'm very gratified at law enforcement policies that are increasingly recognizing addiction as a medical issue and not simply as an issue for law enforcement to deal with. To me, there's a delicate balance. We need to respect the doctor-patient relationship. I don't think we should intrude unreasonably into the doctor-patient relationship. At the same time, we should and we will do everything we can to prevent addiction from happening in the first place. Now, many of you will remember about 2 years ago, actually just more than 2 years ago, I was here for a designation ceremony, and I talked to you. Some people said, just talk about general things. No, I worked 3.5 years to get this position, and I put 50,000 miles a year on my car, and it was a long journey, and I'm going to talk about issues that I personally care about, that I know senators care about because I've been to their districts and talked to them about it. And so I laid out some very specific goals. And so just like in the classroom, we're now at the halfway point. This is a good time to review our progress and see what kind of scorecard we can have. My kids hear about this, they'll like it because we have a thing in Martin County called Pinnacle. It's the Martin County School District, and it's a way for parents to conduct surveillance on their grades and progress, academic progress of their students, and I'm notorious for monitoring Pinnacle very closely for all 3 of our students who grew up. So now we have an opportunity to do that with some things that I talked about and I know all of us care about. But you'll remember, number 1 was let's make our good universities great. So how are we doing? Well, the University of Florida, first time ever in the history of the university, ranked in the top 10 for national public universities. And I think we should all be proud of that accomplishment by the University of Florida. Florida State University up 10 spots in the rankings in the last 2 years. I think we're just getting started, and I want to set a goal for all of us. And some of us, our terms will have expired by then, but I think we should set a goal as a state for the next 5 years that the University of Florida will be a top 5 national university and that Florida State University will be in the top 20. I think we can achieve that goal if we all work together with our universities and with our students. And when you hear from some information about some of the students that we brought here today, I think that goal is very attainable. We accomplished over an 80% increase in need-based aid. Our goal being that every student, regardless of their financial background, they may have to work, their parents can contribute as they can, but I would never want any student in Florida to not be able to attend the university or college to which she or he was admitted because of a financial barrier. We funded 109,000 previously unfunded college and university students for a total of 234,000 students who are receiving need-based aid in Florida. And then one of the pinnacles, and I got on a bus with several senators, and we went around the state, and most of you met us at one stop, and I just kept talking about we're going to get Bright Futures back to 100% of tuition and fees and $300 a semester for books, because that's what it used to be. And I'm very proud of the Senate for leading the way, and obviously for Speaker Corcoran and the House and the governor, that this is not now planned, this isn't something we're talking about doing, that as we're here today, Bright Future academic scholars in Florida are receiving 100% of tuition and fees, $300 a semester for books, and also one summer school. And I want to give credit to Governor Scott. I was at an education conference in Orlando. He is the first official who suggested and recommended that we pay for a summer through Bright Futures, and we incorporated that into the Senate plan, and we have over 40,000 students and families who are receiving that. Universities are currently using the increase that we provided to do many things, hire hundreds of top-notch new faculty members, have already been hired and are on our campuses. We've reduced class size. We've upgraded aging infrastructure and research facilities. We've improved our law, business, and medical schools. And one of the key factors and one of the key initiatives for me in this is that our universities are committed to a 4-year graduation rate rather than a 6-year rate for full-time students. Of course, we all understand that many students attend part-time. Students sometimes have a medical situation or a home situation where they have to take some time off from school. We understand that, and the law takes that into account. But for a typical student who arrives on a university campus and enrolls full-time and is on campus or near campus and living there, we expect and we will work with students to make sure that they're able to graduate in 4 years. As Governor Scott mentions, the amount of money that this saves the families and the students is important, but also it helps our universities as they're striving to be the best that they can be. Students and families deserve certainty as they plan for the financial commitment of a university or college education. And that leads me to Senate Bill 4. By our President-designate, Senator Galvano, we hope to take that bill up on Thursday. Among other things, Senate Bill 4 will make permanent the academic scholar benefits that I just previously described. And additionally, we will raise the medallion level of Bright Futures to 75% of tuition where it used to be, and then also provide them, and this was Senator Bradley's idea, with the same one summer to be able to make sure that they can graduate in 4 years if they need to get a few extra credits. Now, sometimes I have the media and others ask me, why is this issue of rankings and improving our universities and this commitment to have national elite destination universities in Florida, like the University of Virginia, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. This is not about bragging rights. This isn't about being able to just look at a ranking in the U.S. News and World Report or some other publication. It's beyond dispute that how our universities are perceived around the country and around the world have a direct effect on the prospects for our students. And my goal is that, obviously there'll be some students that'll be going to graduate school, and that's fine. But for the majority of students, they are going to go into the workforce. They're going to get a job just like all of us have jobs. And my goal, not only as a legislator, but as a parent as well, is we want every student to march across the graduation stage and have a diploma in one hand and have a job offer in the other hand. And we are seeing that more and more at our universities and colleges. I have talked to presidents, I've talked to those who are responsible for linking students with jobs and with internships, and we are seeing a significant increase in the number of companies and employers from around the country that are interviewing for our best and brightest students here in Florida. Nowhere has our commitment to higher education been more dramatic than with National Merit Scholars. And many of you remember, and I've talked to you about this before, that Senator Benequisto came to me back in 2013 when I was chairing the Appropriations Committee and talked to me about the importance of trying to set some policy so that National Merit Scholars who are Floridians were being recruited by other states with tremendous offers, and many of them were leaving Florida, not because they want to, because I actually think it's good to export some of our best talent so that Florida is represented around the country, but some students were choosing to go to schools in other states strictly because of financial reasons, and that I don't think is something that we would want. So let me just, this is the only part of statistics in the speech, but I'm passionate about this issue. In 2013, we were ranked number 9 in Florida, in the United States. Florida was ranked number 9 among public universities for the number of National Merit Scholars. Fast forward to today, and this is a good example of how legislators can make a difference, and make a difference a lot more quickly than you might think. So we went from number 9 in 2013. Today, we are number 3. Only Texas and Oklahoma are ahead of us. And I believe if we pass Senate Bill 4 and it's signed into law by the governor, we will then be able to recruit out-of-state National Merit Scholars to come to Florida. So that will leave Oklahoma definitely behind, because Oklahoma has all kinds of benefits to attract National Merit Scholars from many states, and a lot of Floridians are attending the University of Oklahoma. And then Texas, of course, is a much larger state than Florida, but I am so proud of the fact that we have gone from number 9 to number 3 with our National Merit Scholars. Now let's talk about freshmen coming into our universities. In 2013, we had 163 National Merit Scholars who enrolled as freshmen in our universities. In 2018-19 year, our estimate is we expect 401 freshmen to enroll as National Merit Scholars in our university, so we have more than doubled it. All told, right now, our best estimate, including this coming year, is that we will have over 1,000 Benequisto National Merit Scholars enrolled in our university colleges. Senator Benequisto, thank you for a great idea, and I'm so proud that we were able to accomplish that together with everyone else here. Thank you. I'd also like to take just a moment to thank Board of Governors Chair Tom Kuntz and Chancellor Marshall Kreiser. They have completely bought into the efforts of the Senate to raise the standing of our public universities. They've given us great ideas. They were gracious enough to have members of the Board of Governors, at least one representative and sometimes more at every single university stop when we visited all of our universities. So I want to thank both of them for working with us, because obviously it takes all of us together, a legislature with funding and policy, but also the Board of Governors and other university leaders to join us. Now, before I introduce the students who have been personally impacted by your efforts and my efforts, I want to take a moment as a sports fan. I'd like to say if there's a ball and they keep score, the Negrons are interested. I want to congratulate the University of Central Florida for their undefeated 13-0 football team. They beat Auburn, as most of us were watching. I was, in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. It was the second most watched Peach Bowl of all time because it was a great game. And for those of us who root for UCF, had a great conclusion to the game. So congratulations to them on an undefeated season. Now, as promised, I want to introduce you to some students who are our fellow citizens here in Florida who have benefited from the extraordinary changes that we've made and funding initiatives that we've made in higher education. Ryan Aponte is a junior at the University of North Florida who moved to Florida when he was just 8 years old. Ryan's dad is a retired New York City firefighter, and his mother is a neonatal nurse practitioner. Ryan is following in her footsteps by pursuing a career in nursing. Ryan is a recipient of the academic scholarship and also a scholarship that will help him with his expenses with the Air Force. He is expected to graduate and be a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. Welcome. Let me go to Gabriella Parpia. Gabriella is a junior at the University of Central Florida, majoring in interdisciplinary studies with a minor in business administration. Gabby was named a National Merit Finalist and a Benequisto Scholarship recipient in 2015 and decided to stay here in Florida and follow in her mother's footsteps as a second-generation Knight. Gabriella was selected to participate in the highly selective Burnett Medical Scholars BS-MD Award. She is Vice President of the Campus Pre-Dental Student Association and has conducted mission trips to Panama and Nicaragua with the organization. She plans to attend a professional school and be a dentist like her mother. Welcome, Gabriella. We will come back to our third introduction in just a moment. But halfway through the academic year, on behalf of the hundreds of thousands of students who are realizing their dreams of a college or university education, I want to once again thank you for your support. I look forward to seeing Senate Bill 4 signed into law in short order so that students and families can be confident in their planning for the upcoming school year. Number 2 was stop the discharges from Lake Okeechobee. Many of you will remember the issue of blue-green algae that was caused by discharges from Lake Okeechobee, both to the east, to the St. Lucie River, and then out the Caloosahatchee River to southwest Florida. And this was a horrific situation. It also had an adverse effect on many other areas of South Florida. Our Senate worked together, and as a result, we were able to pass a historic piece of legislation, Senate Bill 10. Senate Bill 10 was fully funded. It's ahead of schedule. And it provides for what is an indispensable component to reduce and ultimately eliminate discharges, and that is increased storage south of Lake Okeechobee. The bill provides for 100 billion gallons of dynamic storage. And I'm proud to report that this isn't an idea, this isn't something we're workshopping, having meetings. It's being fully implemented, and it has been embraced by Governor Scott, by the Department of Environmental Protection, by the South Florida Water Management District. Everyone involved, and they've put this so you can see it in real time on the website, are committed to making this a reality, and so that at one point we will look back and say there was a period in time where we had these discharges, but we took steps, which by the way have been agreed upon by scientists, by elected leaders, by community leaders, by experts and scientists in the field. What has been agreed to for 18 years, it just was always put at the end of the process. It was always a reason to keep postponing it. 2016, 2018, 2021. Sometime, if you can postpone something long enough, then you can keep it from happening. And so as a result of what the Senate did and what the governor signed into law, we are moving forward with additional storage north of the lake, which we need. We need septic to sewer conversions. There are lots of components to this, but we tackled the most difficult issue, which is southern storage, and I'm so pleased that the Water Management District and DEP and the governor are so committed to making sure that it's implemented in a very timely manner. And I want to thank a few people who made that happen. Senator Bradley, the sponsor, who worked the bill and got the bill passed through the Senate. Senator Latvala, who shepherded the bill through the appropriations process. Senator Book, who's the chair of our Environmental Appropriations Committee and made significant contributions to Senate Bill 10. And then finally, I'd like to thank Senator Stewart for her contributions to the bill as well. And as you know, she's the vice chair of the Environmental Preservation Committee. So I want to thank everyone who has worked so hard on behalf of the millions of citizens who are directly affected, but all of us as a state are affected if we have pollution occurring in any part of Florida. Number 3, let's not criminalize adolescents. The Senate passed legislation, as you know, to increase the use of civil citations. Senator Brandis, Senator Bracey, Senator Powell, and others are working with our colleagues in the House this session to find common ground on some efforts to increase our efforts at making sure, again, I'm taking off of the table serious wrongdoing and criminality, violence by young people. We cannot and we will not tolerate that. On the other hand, we all know when there are mistakes in judgment that are made, and we don't want young people to have a permanent record or to seriously and adversely affect their future because of a mistake they made when they were a teenager. Number 4, I said, let's embrace the Constitution. And I want to briefly mention 3 areas where I think we made tremendous progress in that effort. Number 1, Senator Baxley had a bill that we passed that's now law protecting religious freedom in our public schools. Senator Baxley's legislation, now law, specifies that a school district may not discriminate against a student, parent, or school personnel on the basis of a religious viewpoint or religious expression. Freedom of religion is a central right protected by our Constitution. The government should not impose a religion, and I don't support that. Our Constitution is very clear about that. But all too often we see the other extreme, where we are taking away people's right to free speech and their right to practice their faith or to practice no faith in a way that they believe is appropriate. Students of any faith or no faith have a right to free speech. I am proud that the Senate took the steps necessary to protect this important constitutional right of public school students, parents, teachers, and school administrators. Thank you, Senator Baxley. Senator Baxley also sponsored and helped pass a bill on eyewitness identification. And this bill didn't get a lot of attention. It was passed without great fanfare, but it's an issue that I think is very important to all of us who are committed to accountability and committed to the rule of law. We know from research, and I was a member of the Innocence Commission appointed by President Herodopoulos, and we had many members from the judiciary and from law enforcement to assemble to determine what we could do on the issue of wrongful convictions. Because wrongful convictions are a tragedy not just for the person who's wrongfully convicted, it's also a tragedy for the victim because the person who is actually responsible has not been held accountable. And we learned from research that there's two primary reasons why we have wrongful identifications. They're never done intentionally. One is because you put so much pressure on a person, and all of us could imagine if you were in this situation where they're brought into the sheriff's department and shown a lineup to try to determine who may have committed a crime. And the research shows that that creates so much pressure on an individual that they feel obligated to pick someone because otherwise they're concerned that the investigation is not going to proceed. And sometimes inadvertently, they select the wrong person. So that's the first part of the bill. It simply says, we're going to give a cautionary instruction to any person who is picking someone from a photo lineup or from an actual lineup that says, number one, this investigation will continue after this procedure, regardless of what happens today. And secondly, the person who is the perpetrator may or may not be in this particular lineup. And we know from research that that dramatically decreases the number of misidentifications. Secondly, we provide that the officer who is directly on the case and who knows who the suspect is, that we have another officer to conduct the lineup so that there isn't any inadvertent cue because the officer has knowledge that the other person doesn't have. And I believe the passage of this law will, over time, prevent dozens and dozens of wrongful convictions and also make sure that people who have committed crimes are held accountable. The third bill that I think also carries forward and meets our obligation to protect the Constitution was Senator Bradley's Stand Your Ground defense. It clearly puts the burden of proof on the state to prove the guilt of any individual. I've said before that if the state of Florida wants to put a citizen in prison, the state of Florida should have the burden of proof at each and every stage of the proceeding to prove that that person is guilty, and when it comes to the trial, to prove them guilty beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. So those are three very important bills that I believe met our goal to follow the Constitution. When I look back at last session, I see promises made and promises kept. And in higher education, when I was thinking about this and talking to many of you about this as we were preparing for last session, the progress that we have made in higher education, in building the reputations of our universities, in providing benefits for students so that they're not struggling with financial insecurity, is way beyond the expectations even that I had, and how quickly we've been able to make a difference. And so I want to thank all of you for your effort in making that happen. Before I conclude on higher education, let me go back and complete the introductions. We introduced you to Gabriella. I now want to introduce you to Ryan Aponte. So Ryan, will you stand? Go ahead, Ryan. We did, but I made one mistake that I want to correct. Ryan's a junior at the University of North Florida, as I said, moved here when he was 8 years old. His dad's a retired New York City firefighter. He is following in his mother's footsteps. You notice 2 out of 3 of our students, if you don't think mothers are important, 2 out of our 3 students are following their mother's career, but he's pursuing a career in nursing, and he's a recipient of the Academic Scholar Award, and he tells us, and we had a chance to visit before we came to the floor today, that the Bright Futures Scholarship that he's received has made it possible for him to graduate without taking on any student loan debt. So welcome, Ryan, and congratulations on your career. Jack Northrup. He is in his 2nd year at the University of West Florida. He earned a Medallion Scholar Award and also a National Air Force Scholarship. Jack is majoring in supply chain logistics with the alignment of his academic program for Air Force ROTC and his major in the College of Business. Jack will graduate in 4 years, having earned his bachelor's degree and a commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. Welcome, Jack, and thank you for your service to the United States and to Florida. Another promise we made to our constituents was the return of some of their hard-earned dollars. In recent years, as you know, we passed back-to-school sales tax holidays. We've reduced the corporate income tax. We've permanently lowered the sales tax or the business rent tax charged on commercial leases. We permanently eliminated the sales tax on machinery and manufacturing equipment. We permanently decreased the communication services tax on Floridians' phones and television services. We also provided a reduction in vehicle registration fees for every Floridian who registers a car or truck, and we eliminated the sales tax charged to returning service members and their families who have purchased a vehicle overseas. Last year, we sponsored and passed legislation by Senator Lee that gives voters the opportunity to increase the homestead property tax exemption by $25,000. And this year, Senator Stargell will sponsor legislation that gives the people of Florida the opportunity to require a supermajority of the legislature to approve any future tax increase. The Senate record on tax relief is broad-based and bipartisan. It reflects the ideas and suggestions of senators from every corner of Florida, and I look forward to continuing that effort this session. I want to talk a moment about Amendment 1. Amendment 1 was passed by over 70% of the vote. That exceeds the percentage of votes that many of us were elected by, myself included. And this is an issue where I think we must continue to work to keep our promise to the voters to fully implement Amendment 1. Not only the spirit of Amendment 1, but also the intent of Amendment 1 and the actual language of Amendment 1. It is our responsibility to faithfully implement that amendment. Among other issues that we will look at in that regard are legislation by Senator Bradley, who has legislation for $100 million for Florida Forever. Senator Huckel, I believe, will have a bill to create a permanent funding source for beach renourishment. I want to talk about an issue that Senator Gibson and I both care deeply about, and I don't know anyone in the chamber that's more committed to our military. And we have members of the military obviously all throughout Florida, and we appreciate and respect each and every one of them. But I have to say, as someone who's traveled Florida, Northwest Florida, I would put in this category and several other areas, but Jacksonville, they appreciate the military in Jacksonville, and it's such an important part of that community. And we have a strong bipartisan record of support for our active duty members of the military, including veterans and their families. We passed the Florida GI Bill, which waives out-of-state tuition for honorably discharged veterans. We've also dedicated funds to armory revitalization and to base buffering efforts that protect Florida's military bases from encroachment. Again, this year, we have many opportunities to honor the service and sacrifice of our active duty military and veteran families who call Florida home. Senator Gibson has done a tremendous job in leading this effort as chair of our military committee, and I want to personally thank you. Senator Gaynor and Senator Broxson are working on legislation to authorize Florida colleges to waive certain fees for active duty members of the armed forces. Senator Young is sponsoring legislation to provide statewide dedicated behavioral health care referral services to veterans and their families through Florida's existing 211 network. Senator Stubbe has a bill to eliminate the fee a veteran must pay to have the word veteran displayed on an identification card or driver's license. Senator Baxley is working to create a veteran identification card to be used by veterans as proof of their veteran status. This identification card can be used to obtain discounts or fee waivers, and it would be available to veterans who have been honorably discharged. I'm hopeful that these good bills and other bills under consideration will help solidify Florida's reputation as the most veteran-friendly state in the nation. I want to talk about a couple of proposals from Governor Scott that I look forward to working with him on this session, and I hope all of you will give close attention to. The request the governor's made for additional pay raises for state law enforcement. The Senate has been on the forefront of this issue, as you know, and we have always focused our efforts as a strategic approach to look at where we had unfilled vacancies, where we had high turnover, and where we had high demand. So I look forward to consideration of that proposal. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm committed, and I've talked to many of you and know that we're all committed to supporting our fellow citizens from Puerto Rico who have come to Florida and intend to make Florida their home. And I look forward to working with the governor on many of the proposals that he has put forward, but I wanted to highlight those two. The Speaker of the House, Speaker Corcoran, has some priorities that I think will be well received by the Florida Senate, and they're priorities that I support and have supported. I think we'll see initiatives come from the House that continue to move our state in the direction of school choice. And I firmly believe parents should make decisions of what is best for their students. Some students want to attend, and their families would like them to attend a traditional public school. Some would like to attend a charter school. Some an independent or a religious school. Some parents choose to homeschool their children. I don't love my children enough to homeschool them, but I respect the decision of families to homeschool. I know families that have one student who's homeschooled, one student who attends a charter school, and one who goes to a traditional public school. Every student is different, and parents are in the best position to make those decisions. I had the privilege, because of Speaker Feeney, in 2001 as a House member, to do the very first bill that we had done in Florida in many years to establish corporate tax scholarships. I think it was a little over $50 million at the time, and it was something very new. It hadn't been done around the country. That program has grown, and I've talked to many of you who support the program and who see students in their district whose lives have been uplifted by the program. So this is nothing new to me. It's nothing new to the Senate. I support school choice, and I look forward to consideration of school choice proposals that will come from the House. On direct primary care, to quote President Gates used to say, nothing happens in medicine until a patient sees a doctor. And I have great respect for the doctor-patient relationship. I think Senator Lee has the bill in the Senate, but I expect we'll get a bill from the House on direct primary care that eliminates some of the regulation barriers and other obstacles that right now create problems when doctors want to enter into direct relationships with their patients without the intervention of third parties. I think that all of us want to support our physicians, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that people who have actually gone to medical school, completed residencies, and have a license to practice medicine, let's make sure they're the ones making the decisions on your health care and my health care and our family's health care, and not people who are paying for that procedure. They have an important role to play. It is not the practice of medicine. It is the payment of claims. We should have the practice of medicine done by women and men with the credentials to do that, and at the forefront and at the helm of that leadership are the medical doctors around our state. Thank you, doctor, for being here. A family doctor, someone who sees patients every single day and knows the look in parents' eyes when an 11-year-old child has a fever and doesn't know whether it's spinal meningitis or just a cold. You know that. And that's important, that we value that relationship of doctors and patients. I want to mention one other idea that was brought to me by several senators organically over the past several months. And it's an issue that we're all committed to, we've all worked on, we've all voted in favor of legislation, but it deserves another look, and that is the reality that many of our smart, talented, gifted high school students are going to choose to receive specialized training, whether at a state college, whether through some other mechanism. that will lead them to industry certifications and specializations to go directly into the workforce without formally attending a university and sometimes without even formally attending a state college. We value and honor those students. Intelligence comes in all different forms. And, I remember when I was in first grade and I got a report card that came home to my parents and it said, Joe talks too much in class and has difficulty stringing beads. Now, we have a term for students who can't string beads in the first grade. It's called not smart. Not having spatial skills, not likely to become an orthopedic surgeon, not likely to be able to deal with the complexities of an automobile or to do things in the construction industry. I may have been better at some other things, but that's a gift, it's a talent, it's an intelligence. And those students, we respect their accomplishments, even though sometimes we only talk about students and SAT scores and these different things. There are so many gifted, intelligent students who have gotten these industry certifications that are brilliant at what they do, that can create. And I know Senator Gaynor, Senator Stargell, Senator Baxley, and several others of you have talked to me about this. And so I hope this session that we'll explore ways to promote and enhance these programs in our high school, in our high schools. And I know we, of course, want to give President Gates credit and all of us who worked on expanding industry certifications, which we now have tens of thousands of students who are taking advantage of those. But let's see what we can even do better so that we make sure that all students have opportunities. And regardless of what you decide to do, to go straight to work, to go into the military, to go to a college or university, eventually you're going to have some responsibilities with regard to money management. And Senator Huckel, this is going to be the year, hopefully, for financial literacy. I know it will be in the Senate. That's an important issue with student loans, with everything that is hit students and with hit people that go into the workforce, to make sure that they have a basic understanding of finances. I'm looking forward to that bill moving forward. So as you can see, there are a number of great proposals from the House. There are proposals from the Senate, from both political parties. We have ideas and recommendations from the governor. One thing I know is it doesn't matter at all to the Floridians we represent where these ideas originate. They're worried about taking care of their families, getting their students to ballet practice, to Little League practice, to, in the Negron families, meetings of church that occurred on Wednesday night. Whatever it is that you're doing, families are busy trying to survive and prosper. And they don't care about this home and away football game mentality that some have. I am happy to do school choice. I am happy to help our medical profession. I'm happy to protect consumers, protect patients, improve our universities, our colleges, improve our K through 12 system. We want ideas from everyone. And I want to conclude with a quote by Ronald Reagan. There is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. I look forward to working with each of you during the 2018 session as we continue to represent the citizens of Florida in this place. Thank you all very much. Thank you.